Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. Before we get started, a couple things. Hopefully, you all had a chance this last Saturday, to go to your local comic shop for Free Comic Book Day. I was at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California, and we had a really good turnout. It was great. We had a lot of kids, which is always good. Gave away tons of free comics. The store was actually really busy, which is always good because a lot of people don't realize that that comic shops actually they buy the free comics. They're not free to them. It's a minimal price, but there's still money involved that they have to outlay. So that's why I encourage people to when you go to Free Comic Book Day, actually go buy some stuff, because that actually helps them pay for those books and their business. But we want to take a moment. Because of the passing, he passed away last Friday, but the news broke on Saturday on Free Comic Book Day that George Perez passed away. Saying that George Perez was really important to me is a big understatement. I had read comics as a kid and everything. I think we all do. But it was really the 80s when I really came into really reading comics. I moved to California in 82 and discovered comic shops. When I lived back east in Ohio, we at the time, we didn't have any comic shops. I bought all my comics on the newsstand. So going to a comic shop was like Nirvana. And one of the books that I had bought on the newsstand when it came out was DC Comics Presents, because every issue had Superman with a new character. And in one of the issues, they had DC was doing previews of books, and one of them had the new Teen Titans, which I was familiar with the Titans, with Robin, Wonder Girl, and Aqualad, and Speedy, and all those. But this was new, and this was exciting. And it was not only George's artwork, but Marv's story. And then I learned later on that they actually really collaborated on the book. And I was lucky enough a number of years ago, before George had retired, to not only get, I have the wonderful Titans Omnibus, but I got it signed by George, as you can see. He sang, and I'd met him over the years, a number of times over the years at San Diego Comic-Con and other conventions. And to say that he was one of the nicest creators is a real understatement. His influence and impact on comics will go on forever. And I just want to say that if you really want to honor his memory, please donate to the Hero Initiative. That was a really important thing for him. He was actually a board member of the Hero Initiative when it started, and he was a very strong supporter, because Hero Initiative gives back to creators and people that work in the comic book industry when they need help. And just want to say that we knew that George had been ill, and it still doesn't make it any easier. And then, of course, Neil Adams had passed away the week before, and it's just been a really tough time for me, and for all of people in the industry and fans. So let's get to the new comics, because that's I know George was wanting us to really just keep going, because it's all about the comics, and he was a great talent. Will truly be missed. So let's get started. This week there's a lot of number ones this week. It's a pretty decent stack. Let's just get going. First off, we have Jurassic League number 1. Written by Juan Gideon and Daniel Warren Johnson, with artwork by Juan Gideon. So what I love about this book, first of all, I'm a huge Daniel Warren Johnson fan, and I'm not super familiar with Juan Gideon, but I'll get to the artwork in a minute. But I will say, what I loved about this is how simple this book is, and I think that's what really makes it amazingly charming. Is that the first issue sets up, it introduces Batman. These are all dinosaurs. There's Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Superman, and then we have Black Manta as the villain. Then we have Joker, and who else do we have? Let me look because there's a couple at the end. And it's just fun. You have Sinestro and Bizarro Superman. It's just I think what I love about this is it's just fun and charming and silly and stupid, and that's what makes it just such a great read, is that it doesn't try to be more than it is. And I think I really appreciate when comics do that. It doesn't try to be like the most the most intriguing, greatest comic that's going to be ever made. It's not something. It's just a blast to read, and I think Gideon and Johnson, what they've done with the story is just really smart. This first issue sets up things really well. Does a nice introduction of all the characters. Oh, and Wonder Woman's in it too. And it just, it sets up each character, gives a little bit of, their dinosaur background, I guess you could say. And it's just, it doesn't try to be more than it is. And I think that's why it really, really works so well. And then Gideon's artwork is just, it's a really nice artwork. I would love to see Daniel Warren Johnson actually drawing it, but that's okay. He's doing the cover, which is it's an amazing cover. But Gideon's artwork is really, really good. And I think because there are humans in, like cavemen and stuff like that. And he draws them, both the dinosaur characters and the human characters, quite well. And I think especially with the dinosaurs, because they have like limited kind of facial expressions, he does a great job of bringing that out. It's a really fun book. It was one of the best books I read this week, just because it's a blast to read. It's a fun story with really great artwork, and it was really it's a big pick of this week. Next up we have Bunny Mask: The Hollow Inside #1, written by Paul Tobin with artwork by Andrea Mutai. So this is a sequel to the last Bunny Mask miniseries. So while I think you can read this by itself, I will definitely give that Tobin does a good job of filling you in of like what you the basic structure of the last one. But I really do recommend reading the last miniseries. It does help, but I think you can kind of jump into this. So basically what it is Bunny Mask is a character. It's kind of like a spirit or whatever that it's kind of like karma, but it also has this. It's attached to the psychiatrist, in the sense of he discovered Bunny Mask, and I guess you could say kind of didn't let it escape, but it kind of latched onto him. And so what it is the Bunny Mask goes around and like, so one of the things that happens in the issue is this guy kicks his dog, just to kick the dog, and breaks the dog's leg. So Bunny Mask takes a bone out of the guy's arm and puts it in the dog, fixes the dog, and then the guy has no bone in his arm. So she does things, like I said, that's why it's like karma. But what's interesting is there's another character that basically attacks this guy and makes him disappear. Like every known thing about this guy just disappears, and at the end of this issue, Bunny Mask is like, wait, there's something wrong here. So I really have to give it to Tobin that he's really expanding, and it's not just another Bunny Mask story per se, and I really like that. And then I'm a big fan of Mutai's artwork. And it really is, it's a good creepy book. It's definitely in the horror vein for sure. But what I like about it is it's not, I mean, there's some really messed up visuals. Not so much in this first issue, but the previous miniseries had some really some really nasty stuff. But I like the fact that it's more, it's not trying to be shocking in that respect. It's more creepy, and that's what I have really liked about these bunny mask stories, is that they're just super creepy, and it's I think it's worth checking out, especially if you're a horror fan. I did enjoy this first issue, and I think, like I said, I really like how Tobin built upon the previous stories and really added something quite different to this particular story. Next up, we have Hulk versus Thor: Banner of Wars #1, written by Donny Cates, and artwork by Martin Kokolo. So this spins out of really the Hulk series, and so at the end of the last Hulk, it's like, oh look, there's Thor. He's a friend from work. But no, not really. So once again, Bruce Banner is actually running the Hulk kind of like a kaiju. And so this also ties into Thor in the sense of the Thor series. Odin has passed away. And so those two stories are basically colliding here, where you have the story threads from Thor and then the story threads from Hulk, which I will definitely give Cates that there's like, if you have not been reading either book, there is a complete setup. It's like 3 pages and going in saying, hey, here's what's happened, this is why they're together, blah blah blah. And it's really a smart move. I wish more crossovers would do that, because if you have not read them, you can totally jump in and start this, and then it's gonna continue in the next few issues of Hulk and Thor. And so basically what it is them just beating the snot out of each other for 22 pages after the preview. And while I have been reading the Hulk and I've actually really enjoyed it, I wasn't particularly overwhelmed with this. I mean, I think there were some interesting ideas about how Odin is fitting into the story and stuff like that, but ultimately there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone here, in the sense of there was really just them fighting for like the whole issue, which is nice, but there wasn't really a lot of story to go with it. I will say that I think the setup for possibly the rest of the story was interesting. There was a nice thing at the end of the issue that will lead further, that shows promise. While I wasn't necessarily blown away by this first issue, I think it shows some promise. I wouldn't say that I'm really recommending it, but I'm not saying that it's not worth picking up. I think if you've been interested in either book, in that respect, I think it's kind of worth checking out, because it's giving a little bit of both. But I will give that Kokolo's artwork is actually really nice. It's a good looking book, so it'll be interesting to see how this pans out with this crossover. Next up, we have Batman Urban Legends #15. Okay, so we have, there's 4 stories. There's Batman and Zatanna, which is written by Vita Ilea, with artwork by Nikola Chizminska. I know I totally messed it up. I apologize. Then there's Batman and Plastic Man, written by Joey Esposito, with artwork by Jason Howard. Then we have the Birds of Prey story, written by Chi Grayson, with artwork by Serge Arcuna. And then the final story in this issue is Ace the Bat Hound, written by Mark Russell, with artwork by Carl Mosteret. So Batman, Zatanna, and Ace are now the 5th of the 6 stories. Batman and Plastic Man is a standalone story on its own, and Birds of Prey is the second of 3 parts. So those 3 stories will end next issue, and I'm assuming they'll start maybe some more stories, but that's where we're at with this particular issue. So we'll start with the Batman Zatanna, written by Ilea, with art, and I like a lot of the ideas. I think that the problem I've had, and I've said this before, that I think the story's been stretched out, but I will say this issue, I think, kind of at least got it back on track to where, so what it is these 2, guess you could call them demons, have used Zatanna and Bruce to escape. And so now, so Zatanna's, so they're on each side. So John Constantine and Bruce are on, kind of the dark side, whereas Zatanna's sort of in the real our side. And so they basically send the demons back, and that's kind of where we end up this issue, and it's leading into the conclusion of that story. Like I said, I like this concept of the story. I just think it's too drawn out. It's not bad. It's okay. It's just, I think, it is finally kind of getting to a part where, okay, we're getting back on track. So in that respect, this particular story I think is good. The artwork by Shaminska is really nice. It's a good looking story. It's just I'm just not overwhelmed with the story. The Batman Plastic Man is just a fun little story. I think I'm a big fan of Plastic Man. So anytime you use Plastic Man, and I think what's interesting is how it really goes back to how Plastic Man became a hero from being a villain, and it does touch upon that in the story, which I thought was a nice touch in the story by Esposito. So, and Howard's artwork's really is nice. It does a good job. He draws a good Plastic Man, which is always really, for me, that's the big key. The Birds of Prey, I wasn't really overwhelmed with the first part of the story, and it's really just not doing much for me. I don't think it's terrible. It's kind of one of those like so-so stories where so what it is the villain is using an app to get into people's heads, and it's just kind of like it's not a particularly original story, and it's really kind of a bit convoluted in the sense of it really just there's a lot of dialogue. It's just, I don't know. It's just not working. Acuna's artwork's nice, but that's about all I will really say about that. Once again, the whole reason I'm picking up this book is for the Mark Russell Mosterette Ace the Bat Hound. So we're still seeing, so Batman has been captured. He's being auctioned off to the highest bidder. And there's something that happened. There's a big reveal at the end of this particular this chapter, which I will not go into, but it brings in some ways the animals and Batman back together. But I will say that there is something that happens in the story that is very sad, and it's really handled quite well. I really have to give it to Russell how he's able to once again tell this story from with the animals, and it just works so well because they obviously don't have dialogue and stuff. So, and then Mostret really brings it with the artwork and pulls this thing together. It really, I'm loving this story, and even though the book's a little pricey, for me it's well worth the price of admission for the Ace the Bat Hound story that is just absolutely wonderful. I cannot wait to see how Russell and Mostret end it. So for that reason, I think it's worth picking up. Next up, we have Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer #1, written by Mitch Irvison, with artwork by Stefano Martino. So the best way I can kind of describe this book is, so there's the painting, Frank Frazetta's famous painting of Death Dealer. And that's really all. There's no story to go with it. It's just a painting. So what Iverson has done is create a story, and the best way I can kind of describe it is it's like Conan. Think of Conan, except for he's got a helmet on. It's possessed, or it's got like a spirit in it, and he can't take it off. And that's how he kind of gets his strength. And it's, once again, it wasn't that it was bad. It's just Conan, and I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. I think it just did its thing, and it had blood, it had violence, it had sex. It basically was a Conan story. I will say Martino's artwork's actually really nice. It's a really good looking book. I mean, it's just one of those things. If you're looking for kind of a Conan-esque type book, this is it. It's not exactly, Conan, but it's like Conan. And on that level, it kind of worked. It didn't try to be any more than what it was. Next up, we have Blood Syndicate Season 1, Number 1. Written by Jeffrey Thorne, with pencils by Chris Cross and inks by Juan Castro. So this is the newest of the Milestone series. We've had Rocket and Icon, Static. So Blood Syndicate is back. That's one of the titles from the when Milestone back in the day, and it's interesting because I initially wasn't particularly overwhelmed with the story by Thorne. I'm reading it, and so what it is two guys come back from war overseas, and like say in Afghanistan type thing, where they're in cities and stuff, and it was I'm just reading it, and it's like, okay, this is nice and everything, and then it really what did make it come together is the last part of this first issue did a great, not so much a twist, but like brought it all together, and it's like, okay, now this kind of makes sense. It's not that the story didn't make any sense, it just was kind of a different type, it's one of those different types of setups to where it kind of comes flooding back all at once, and you're like, okay, now I understand why Thorne wrote it the way he did. So I actually, like I said, I wasn't overwhelmed, but by the time I got to the end, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm intrigued by this whole thing. The artwork by Chris Cross is really, really nice. I'm a big fan of his. This is a really good looking book, and if you're a fan of the Milestone universe, the Dakota universe, I think it's worth checking out. Like I said, just be patient with that first issue, but by the time you get to the end of the issue, you're like, okay, now I get where they're going. Next up, we have Captain America's The Symbol of Truth, number 1, written by Toshi Onibushi, with artwork by R.B. Silva. So this spins out of that. There was a Captain America Zero that had both. So Falcon is Captain America, and then apparently Steve Rogers is Captain America. So we have two Captain America. Everybody's Captain America, apparently. So the thing is, it's a pretty basic Captain America story. There's a train that supposedly has super serum on it. So Captain America and his new Falcon basically go after the train, and they fight a bunch of bad guys, and the whole thing's a setup because the new Falcon, basically his family is there. So it was all set up. And it was just kind of okay. It wasn't like it was bad. It just was, okay, this is nice and everything, and doing everything by the book. But there wasn't anything I haven't really read before. And I think that's kind of where I struggle with it, where it just kind of came off as like, okay, been there, done that. Not bad. Just read this story a million times, and it really didn't make anything new out of a story. An old story. The artwork's nice. Silva does a good job of on the art of the book, but I think it's just very standard, so I can't really recommend it. It's not a really strong hatred of this book. It was okay. That was where it landed. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 787, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan. With artwork by the pencils by Emanuela Lupacchino, and inks by Wade Von Grawbadger. So as this is post Trial of the Amazons, which sadly for me was a really big disappointment. It just didn't land well. So the good thing is this issue does kind of get the book back on track. I wouldn't say I'm not back to where I'm loving it, but I will say I'm definitely liking a lot better than I had previous story arc that they had before Trial of the Amazons and Trial of the Amazons, which just didn't do it for me. But I will say, so the good thing is Siegfried is back, and he's rooming with Steve Trevor. That will be interesting. So it's kind of getting back to basics where Diana is really, so her, Steve, Siegfried and not Amanda Waller, uh, Etta. Thank you. Is basically, it's kind of like they have I don't want to say a detective agency, but it's kind of like that. So that's kind of the setup we have. That Conrad and Clunan are kind of putting things back on track post Trial of the Amazons. I will say I'm glad Lou Pacino's doing the artwork. The artwork has struggled, I think, for a little bit on the book. This is really a good, strong artist, and I think it brings back. So I think it's getting back on track. I can't really quite recommend it, but I will say if you've been a little iffy on the book, like I have, then it is showing promise. I think this is definitely a good start to a new story arc. I do want to point out that there's the young Diana backup, which I think is really good. Unfortunately, it just doesn't mesh with the main stories that Wonder Woman's doing. So I think it's a shame. I think it just needs to be its own book, and not a backup. Because the other problem is it's making the cover price higher. So Wonder Woman is a tough sell anyways. You're asking people to spend another buck. It's a hard sell. So I think they need to drop that backup, at least for now, or do a different backup that fits better with the main story, because it's truly like oil and water with that thing. And I'm not knocking the young Diana. I think it's really good. I just don't think it fits. Next up, we have Grimm #1, written by Stephanie Phillips, with artwork by Favino. So what this is it's a story about a Grim Reaper who it's this guy dies in a car accident, and the Grim Reaper is this young girl, and so of course, he doesn't. I'm like, I don't want to die. It's like, well, it's already happened. I'm just taking you from point A to point B. And so she takes him to the weigh station and drops him off and everything. It's a giant waiting room. And then she discovers that he has stolen her sickle, so he goes back to try to be alive again, but he can't, but he goes back to Earth. And then so what it is she goes back. Her couple other Grim Reapers go with her to try to help her get her sickle back. And so she ends up being like, normally when she goes to Earth to get somebody, nobody can see her or anything, but when she goes back this time, maybe it's because she doesn't have the sickle, she gets arrested by the police. So it's really kind of interesting. I really have to give Phillips props. I really like this story. I thought it was really an intriguing concept, and it just, this first issue was really solid. It had a good, it had a good setup, it had a good premise. Gave you a good reason to come back for the second issue, which is always a plus. And it really was a solid first issue out of the gate. And then Favino's artwork, the artwork's actually really nice. It's a good looking book, and it's I think it's worth checking out. I was really surprised by the story and the artwork on that one. Next up, we have West of Sundown #2. Written by Tom Seeley and Aaron Campbell, with artwork by Jim Terry. So I really enjoyed the first issue of this. So what it is the setup in the first issue, there was a vampire in New York, and she basically was killing people or she was drinking people that deserved to die. They were they cheated on somebody, or they stole money, etc., etc. So that was the premise of the first issue. And then so it is, they got found out in New York, and they had to go west, where she was basically born as a vampire. And so that's how the first issue. So the second issue, I will say you're kind of a little lost on at the beginning of the story. Not horribly, but I was like, I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, I'm not quite, it's not quite gelling. But then, so we actually learn her origin this issue, and it also sets up to where she was born. There's now this cult there, so there's this whole weird thing, and I actually, like I said, the first, I'd say the first 5 pages or so was a little not off-putting, but a little odd for me. But once it kind of got going, it really, like, okay, this not only makes sense now, but this really changed the thing from just a, like, okay, this is just another vampire book, to like, okay, this really is taking, like, the vampire story and really adding some great new mixtures. Plus, there is Dr. Frankenstein's in it, so there's that whole thing going on. So I don't know if they're going to bring in other characters. That was another thing that was like, oh, that's kind of intriguing. So we'll see about that. Terry's artwork's a little hit and miss for me. I don't think it's bad. It just seems like it's a little inconsistent, but overall, I think it's pretty decent. I think it's one of those things. I think that he just needs to get his consistency down a little bit better, but otherwise, it doesn't impact the book horribly, which is good. But hopefully we'll see him grow as the book goes along. Next up, we have 8 Billion Genies, #1, written by Charles Soule, with artwork by Ryan Brown. Now, I really love this book, and it has a absolutely brilliant premise. So what it is, it starts off, so this band's playing in this bar, nobody's probably going to show up, and so then all of a sudden, genies pop up to everyone. Everyone on the entire planet gets a genie, and you get one wish, not 3, you get one wish. So the bar owner, wisely, he says, he uses his wish to, that anybody who makes a wish outside the bar does not affect us inside the bar. So that includes the band and the other people that are in there. So while they're outside, the girl says, oh, so the one band member wants, he likes this girl and wants to go out with her and everything. But she actually likes the other band member, so she uses her wish for the other guy to fall in love with her, but he's in the bar, so guess what? It doesn't work. And I think the best part of this issue, beyond that there was just some amazing batshit crazy stuff, is they open the door and there's like people riding dinosaurs, there's giant robots. I mean, like, people have asked for like everything. And so what's also interesting is there's a shot of the Earth, and it starts off with 9 billion people and then 9 billion genies or whatever, and then it goes to like 2 hours later, there's like there's still 9 billion genies, but now the number of people on Earth has gone down because, once again, people blew it, or they effed up their wish. So the premise of this is just absolutely genius. I have to give Soule, this is the concept's crazy, but he really pulls it all together. And Brown's artwork is just, I really like it. I love the look of the genies. The genies are just freaking adorable. And I really, really enjoyed this. It was a really neat twist on the monkey paw story, in the sense of be careful what you wish for. And I really like the setup's great. The cliffhanger's great for this first issue. It's really worth checking out. I really like this book. So I think it's definitely worth picking up this week. Next up, we have Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood, #1. Okay, so there's 3 stories. There's Anubis Rex, written by Jonathan Hickman with artwork by Chris Bachalo. Then we have So White Yet So Dark, which is written by Merwa Idell, and artwork by Dutton Acade. And then the final story, The End, is written by Mark Guggenheim, with artwork by George Fornes. So the first issue is, so basically, once again, these are all standalone stories. There's no continuity or anything, and they're all short stories. So the first one is Moon Knight's in outer space, and there's this girl. So the sun has gone dark, so this girl's able to find pieces of like sun or stars. And so that's kind of what the story is. It's kind of interesting. Bachala's art's really nice. The story was intriguing. I think it just didn't land perfectly, but I think it was a solid story. The So White Yes So Dark by Odell Odell and Kane is a wonderful Moon Knight Spider-Man story. It's a real charmer. It's real funny. I don't want to give away why Spider-Man's hanging out with Moon Knight, but there's a really good reason, and it's really, really funny. That one was really enjoyable. But the biggest surprise was the end, written by Mark Guggenheim, and the artwork by George Farnes. I'm a huge George Farnes did the Rorschach miniseries with Tom King at DC. And so what it is the story is actually told backwards. The actual last page is first and the first page is last. So, but you don't realize it until you get to the end, and then you go, oh, okay. And they do explain all it's one of those backwards forward stories, and it just works. It's amazing. That one is just worth the price of admission alone. But overall, I did like each story. And once again, these anthology type books they're going to be possibly hit and misses at the same time. Each one's going to be its own thing. But Moon Knight's hot right now because of the TV series. So if you're looking just to kind of read Moon Knight stories, these are great because they just stand alone, and it also has different writers and artists for each issue, which is always a win because you get different voices doing stories, because they're just short little stories. And finally this week, we have the long-awaited third issue of Suicide Squad Get Joker #3, written by Brian Azzilio, with artwork by Alex Malvi. So it's been a while. So basically, Red Hood, Robin, and his Task Force X team has been tasked to go kill the Joker. Well, the Joker ends up stealing the controller that can set off the bombs in their head. So, of course, they can't kill him because he'll blow their heads off. So Amanda Waller sends another Task Force X to kill them and the Joker. So basically, this final issue is a giant just battle royale of the first Task X Force trying to get away so they can catch the Joker and either kill him or get the box or whatever. And you got Peacemaker and the new team, the second Task Force X team after them. They're just killing everybody at this point. And I will say what's interesting about this book, and I'm trying not to get, the ending is absolutely brilliant, because the ending is one of those endings where it ends, but it kind of doesn't. It leaves it up to you as the reader to like what really happens. Because there's ultimately it does end, but it's like vague on what actually happened. But that's what's amazing about the story. It's really either way of the ending that you think it works, and that's I really have to give it to Arzilio. It's not used very often, and you got to be able to pull it off, and he really does it here. And Malvi's artwork is just really wonderful, and it's just like I said, this issue is just practically a giant gun battle, and it's really spectacular. It really was very satisfying. It was a great Black Label series, and I really did enjoy it. And I think it's worth checking out. I mean, third issue, it's been a while since I know the second issue came out. So I'm sure there'll probably be a trade and a hardcover of this. Definitely check it out when that comes out if you've missed this book, because I do think this is one of the better Suicide Squad stories that I've actually read in a while. So that's going to do it this week. Pretty big week. As always, public service announcement, I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store. It's really great. It's a great community. And the other thing I did forget to mention at Free Comic Book Day, one of the things that they do, which I love, is that they first of all, you get one free comic for just showing up for Free Comic Day. But if you bring canned goods or a cash donation, they take the food and the cash donations and donate all of that to the Long Beach Rescue Mission, which in these unfortunate trying times, with high prices of everything, it's really good. Basically, they give back to the community by using Free Comic Book Day, because a lot of people came down and everything, but they also give back to the community, which is really, really important. There is a Ryan, Annie, and Eduardo. Derek, Wendy, we had a great turnout. It was really great for both comics and for the Long Beach Rescue Mission. And if you live in the LA area, there's the Pulp Fiction Culver City, different name, same name, different owners. Chris and her team run that. They also do the similar thing for the donations for Free Comic Book Day. They donate to the LA Rescue Mission. So both stores do really good jobs of giving back to the community on a day that's very big for both of them. And as we always end our show, is to be kind. Being kind doesn't cost anything, and it really can make you feel good. Once again, that's one of the reasons why I help out at Free Comic Book Day, because it's giving back. I love comics so much. It's like giving back and getting people interested in comics, and that's really what Free Comic Book Day is about. So please be kind, be safe, take care of yourselves out there. This is Steven from popculturemaven.com. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and just take care of yourselves out there, and be kind. We'll see you again next week with more reviews. Take care. Bye bye.